Sound check 1 2.
The air's flowing pretty good right now, so you'll be fine.
Meeting the Planning Commission will now come to order. Please rise and follow Commissioner Owens in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Our first live meeting in over a year, so good to see everybody. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Ortiz,
Present.
Commissioner Montoya,
Present.
Vice Chair Owens,
Present.
and Chair Duarte.
Present. Will those in attendance please read the cover page of the agenda as it outlines the procedures which the Commission will follow? This is the time set aside for oral communications for the Planning Commission. Does any commissioner wish to express announcement or report on a conference or a meeting or request items for a future agenda? Commissioner Montoya?
Nothing to report, Chairman.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to report today.
Vice Chair Owens?
I have nothing as well, Chair. Thank you.
And I do not either. Moving along, is the Director of Community Development aware of any presentations for tonight?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Duarte. First off, I'd like to welcome everybody to our first meeting back in the chambers in a semi or a post-COVID environment. And today we do have a presentation in regards to the Rancho Los Amigos South Campus Specific Plan. We've chatted about this plan over the years. It's based on a grant that we got from Metro to do an analysis and create a specific plan for allowed uses due to a proposed and future light rail station that will be located on this site as well. And so these are staff's efforts through the grant to do some land use planning around transportation-oriented development uses at that site. And so tonight we have our subject matter experts from our consulting firm. The firm is Kimley Horn, and the staff is Dana Previtt and Brian Long that will be providing our presentation. And before I get with them, I will pass it over to Crystal Landavazo to see if she needs to add anything before we start our presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Director Schindler basically covered what the initiation and the evolution of this process. The only thing that I did want to point out is that we do understand that this is a big area of the city, which is why there has been so much time spent on trying to develop something that met the true intent of a transit-oriented development. And when we get into explaining what the specific plan is, hopefully that is a little bit clearer for the Commission and for the public. This is a study session, so right now we are in the middle of the public review period for both the specific plan document and for the environmental document that reviewed it. So this is a chance for us to introduce the document to the community and for the community to share any comments. All comments will be recorded and they'll be incorporated into the document itself so that we can provide responses to that. But feel free to ask any questions tonight, both the Commission and the public. We can try to address it as best as possible. And again, this is just one phase in us trying to have a completed document that is responsive to what the community needs and what the outreach has been. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. And Crystal made a great point that tonight is a study session to collect further feedback from the community and to provide an introduction to our Planning Commission. This exact item will be in front of the Planning Commission again next week on July 21st with the goal of making a recommendation to Council. So the public's going to have yet another opportunity to come and express their views on this plan. Then this plan will be presented to the City Council sometime in August. So the community is going to have yet another opportunity to provide comment and feedback in a public forum on this document, in addition to being able to provide public comments through our website in regards to the plan. So with that, I think we're ready for Ms. Previtt to come up and make her presentation on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Schindler. Again, I'm Dana Previtt with Kimley Horn and Associates. We're under contract to the city to prepare both the specific plan as well as the environmental impact report, EIR, for this project. So thank you for having me here, and welcome back to City Hall. It's nice to be back in public with everyone here and in other jurisdictions as well. So perhaps you could help me figure out what to push. Is it this one, the top? So I'll try to not reiterate too much what has been said so far, but the purpose really here tonight is to provide you and the community with a overview of both the specific plan and the CEQA EIR process. And Mr. Schindler and Crystal went over some of this, but just to give you a little bit better sense of where we are and where we've been in the process with the city, it's really started by engaging with the city's partners and the community in helping to define what the specific plan project should be. And that's taken some time and is continuing on through this process. The notice of preparation is what kicks off the EIR process, and that was in early part of 2019 and gave another opportunity beyond what we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of providing input on what should be addressed in the EIR. That occurred also as part of the CEQA scoping meeting in February of 2019, and work was done subsequent to that time in terms of defining and providing the draft specific plan to the city and preparation of the draft EIR. As was mentioned, the draft EIR is currently out for public review for a mandated 45-day review period. That period ends on July 22nd. Where we are here tonight is to, as mentioned, to provide some overall description of what the project is, and you let everyone know where we are in the process and what the different opportunities continue to be for public input and Planning Commission input onto the project. As mentioned, the Planning Commission will be meeting next week on the 21st. The public review period ends the subsequent day, at which time any comments that have been made, the city's already received some comment letters. In accordance with CEQA, it's a mandate to address any environmental comments. Those will be part of the documentation provided to the City Council for their consideration at hearings tentatively scheduled for August, September. So where is the project? It is in the southwest part of the city. It is a specific plan area of about 172 acres, the area that's shown in red. To the north is Imperial Highway, and the northern part of the Rancho Los Amigos rehabilitation area. In part, both the south and the north comprise kind of the overall campus that was originally a vital part of this city for a very, very long time. To the south, the site is bordered by Gardendale Street, as there is primarily single family, some industrial uses to the south of that roadway. To the east is primarily single-family residential and St. Pius X, St. Matthias Academy. And to the west are a mixture of kind of industrial, both multifamily and single-family residential uses in the city of Southgate. So when we're looking at the overall specific plan area, it may be somewhat difficult for some to see, but this kind of identifies what the existing types of land uses currently exist within this property, all which is County of Los Angeles property in the city of Downey. The pink is industrial development. The blue is predominantly institutional uses. The small green area right here is open space. The light green, which this area here is vacant land, and the transit railroad right-of-way runs through this part of the site. The existing general plan designation for the overall area right now is commercial manufacturing, and has several zoning designations, single-family residential, and 2 specific plan designations, one being the Rancho Business Center specific plan, which is on about 121 acres of the site, which really focuses on uses that are business park, light industrial uses. The Rancho Los Amigos specific plan is kind of in the northwest corner and assumes light manufacturing uses. And how that breaks down into existing development, both in terms of acreage and square feet, is shown on this slide here. We'll talk a little bit later about the focus area, but the overall specific plan area, as mentioned, is about 172 acres and is predominantly institutional uses, as well as about 41 acres of industrial and about 12 acres of office and about an acre that's currently vacant, with a total of about 1.365 million square feet of existing development. So, as mentioned, the Rancho Los Amigos campus is both north and south of Imperial Highway, and the area that is the focus of this work effort by the City of Downey is the area in the South Campus, which was shown in the previous slides. And as mentioned, the work from the city really started in 2015 when they received a transit-oriented development TOD planning grant from the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or Metro. And that grant was to help the city fund this specific plan. And as mentioned, it's, perhaps a little bit different in that it is a specific plan that is initiated by the city. All the property is located within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city, but all of the property is owned by the County of Los Angeles. So I'm sure many of you were probably and continue to be involved with the specific plan, but as background, a specific plan is really an implementation tool of the general plan. It's required to be consistent with the general plan and can only be adopted if it's consistent with the general plan, but it kind of bridges from a site-specific set of development guidelines between a general plan and those very specific So it allows a city or a proposed applicant to look at a particular area, whether it be of a city or a county, and that really sets specific focus, development standards and regulation and policies to best address the goals of the jurisdiction for that particular area of this area, in this case, the city of Downey. And it includes land uses and describes the types of permitted land uses, conditionally permitted land uses, how those land uses might be distributed within the specific plan area, establishes the policies, as we mentioned, the development standards related to setbacks and building heights and all of the factors that are often found within a zoning code, but is really very tailored for a specific area, in this case, the South Campus area. It also includes design guidelines that looks at the kind of overall guidance for the types of development in terms of uses, as well as things like lighting and other factors as well. And what's really important to understand is that this was not a document that Kimberly Horn prepared in our offices or that staff prepared and handed over to you. It involved a lot of collaboration with the community, as well as, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in terms of the other kind of partners that have interest in these properties. So a community workshop was held in November of 2017 with participation by over 100 community members, business owners, and stakeholders. That meeting kind of kicked off the process, talking about what the area was, the timeline for moving through the entitlement process, what a specific plan is, and what the future opportunities for outreach and engagement by the community. A land use workshop was held in April of 2018. The city, Kimberly Horn, the county, Metro, and consultants really talked about kind of the vision as well as where they saw opportunities, particularly as it applied to the underutilized and or vacant parcels within the to be defined specific plan area. As mentioned, there's ongoing interaction with the community and development partners, being property owners, in terms of through their website and social media. And out of that effort really divulged the goals of the specific plan, which became the overall objectives that are also looked at in terms of the EIR, and was really to look at a site that used to be very vital to the community and has been in part vacant and or underutilized since the 1980s. And to look at creating, a mixed-use, higher-intensity, multimodal type of area that ties into the types of transit opportunities that are being proposed for this area. That development should be, in a way that is sustainable and really tied to also being at a pedestrian scale. With a mix of uses that really complement the community and really also look forward back at the existing development and history of the city, as well as Rancho Los Amigos as it moves forward, and to provide an opportunity to really, continue to provide economic development opportunities in the city, as well as we mentioned, transportation and transit. And specifically, to kind of emphasize some of the things that really came out of the community's involvement were in part looking at the permitted uses, the development standards. In this case, it's a little bit hard to see, but issues related to, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. This slide shows the kind of step backs and setbacks from existing off-site residential uses, where we've got setbacks from the street, as well as that development is then stepped back so that you don't have necessarily a complete vertical facade against the existing roadway, in this case, for example, Gardendale. And a lot of those kinds of things were developed as part of the public engagement process. Some of the other things that are addressed in terms of the design guidelines are, the compatibility of uses, how heights of buildings, general architectural design, how to include open space, and those sort of factors that really play into providing guidance, but not to dictate where every use has to go and exactly how it will occur in the future. So out of that specific plan was developed 4 sub-areas. The largest area shown in yellow is the Flex Tech Biomedical Subdistrict, which is really intended to look forward to office and medical uses that are supportive of the uses already in Rancho Los Amigos Rehabilitation Center, those kinds of uses and as was shown in the existing conditions, land uses, the area, like other areas within the specific plan area, do include a lot of existing development, including, active, vital types of uses within the boundaries of the specific plan. It, includes the Downey Courthouse, the LA County Public Health Lab, industrial uses, and this sub-area is really also to encourage kind of light industrial, office, and research uses that are complementary to the uses also on the north side, which is where the Rancho Los Amigos rehabilitation uses are located. Located in the regional public facilities area is really to complement the LA County facilities that exist and are planned. This is, my eyesight is not as good as it used to be. So the blue area here is the area that is planned by the county for their LA County Internal Services Department, probation headquarters, administrative offices. This is an area that's predominantly vacant and/or contains underutilized buildings. The pink, which is the transit-oriented development subdistrict, is really intended to support the future proposed Metro Gardendale Transit Station, which would be located in this area along the rail corridor. And so the types of, as Crystal mentioned, the transit-oriented uses are really to be supportive. Things like residential and some non-residential uses that really help where someone could live and then walk to a transit, work downtown from taking the transit metro station use, or conversely, to commute to this area and possibly live or work in this area. So it's really meant to get people out of their cars and to be able to have a kind of a multi-function use that really supports the use and opportunity related to transit. The community use, which is in green, is intended for open space recreational areas and is the site as part of the Downey Sports Complex, which is under construction. And quite difficult to see on this particular slide, so I'll try to walk you through this. The outside boundary, which is oops. This boundary here, again, is the specific plan boundary. And as we've alluded to, that there's other users and other types of uses, and it's why as we move into the CEQA process, we start focusing on what we have called the focus area. And so there's several projects that are happening and have been subject in part to separate analysis in both plans and CEQA documentation. The largest being the county's South Campus project, which includes the area in blue, which is shown here in general, is about 74 acres. Some of that is, as we've mentioned, includes existing development. On about 35 of those acres is what is planned for the additional county uses, including, as mentioned, administrative offices, probation headquarters, et cetera, with approximately 650,000 square feet of county office uses. As part of the EIR that was prepared and the project that was approved, not mention is that there are historic structures located throughout the site. The county's project does have a combination of some buildings would be removed, as well as some resources would be retained and either adaptively reused or rehabilitated or strategically stored and maintained for future use. That project was included a plan and EIR, which was certified by the county in June of 2020. The Metro West Santa Ana Branch Transit Corridor includes the proposed new light rail transit line to downtown with the proposed Gardendale Transit Station, which is obviously along the transit line. So that is both a joint CEQA and NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act, which is the kind of federal environmental documentation. That document has not yet gone out for public review by Metro, but is tentatively scheduled to go out sometime this summer. And then, as we mentioned as well, is the Downey Sports Complex is under construction with a proposed completion date of November of this year. So when you start looking at the combination of the county's project, Metro's project, areas that are already kind of developed, it is what led us to what is being referred to as the focus area. So while the overall specific plan identifies potential land uses for the overall 172-acre specific plan area, the EIR, which we'll talk about in a minute, only looks at the acreage and development potential associated with that focus area, because the other areas are basically engaged in other county projects, metro projects, or would not have any change. So we are looking at an area of about 63 acres, of it which includes some occupied and open space uses. So you end up with about 48 acres. So again, the outside line is the overall specific plan area, but when we start looking at the focus area, that is the yellow area. The area that is outlined in yellow is the focus area, which is what was subject to evaluation as part of the EIR. And what was determined in the specific plan and then evaluated in the EIR was, at a programmatic level, the development potential for 700 dwelling units and up to 1,130,000 square feet of non-residential uses within the focus area. So the yellow line is the focus area. And while many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the environmental process, we'll kind of go through it briefly in terms of what an EIR requires and what the CEQA process requires. So the project in this case is potential future development of the focus area with the uses that we identified in terms of the maximum amount of development. Because there's no specific development project being proposed, it's not as if someone is coming and saying, we want to put a shopping center on this corner. We look at the potential impacts associated with future development within the boundaries of the specific plan area. So we're, at what is referred to at a programmatic level, looking at both the potential construction impacts as well as operational or use of those different development types within the boundaries of the specific plan. And CEQA requires you to look at that project specific and cumulative. For example, air quality impacts don't end at the jurisdictional boundaries of a city. It's within the overall basin. And then when we look at impacts, if they are determined to be significant, and significant is based on a threshold, it's not a subjective criteria. It may be a air quality management district threshold. It could be a vehicle miles traveled threshold. For those potential significant impacts, you're under CEQA required to identify feasible mitigation that either mitigate those impacts to a level less than significant or to the degree feasible. And for purposes of an EIR, you also are required to look at alternatives to the proposed project with the intent of trying to minimize or eliminate those significant and avoidable impacts of the project. So you'll see that the EIR, the program EIR, looked at basically the gamut of topics other than things that are not applicable to this area or to the city of Downey. For example, we did not look at farmland, which is a topic under CEQA, or wildfires, because they're not applicable to this particular development. So each of these topics are evaluated at a programmatic level, and then these next slides talk about whether or not, based on those thresholds, whether the expectation is that the impacts would be less than significant without the application of mitigation measures, less than significant with mitigation, or that even with the imposition of mitigation measures, those impacts would still be significant and unavoidable. So you see on the screen the findings related to impacts that would be less than significant. That doesn't mean that there aren't mandates that are set forth under regulations that the city may have, or compliance with the requirements set forth in the general plan, zoning, the municipal codes, as well as the specific plan related to design and other factors. But these are the topics that would be less than significant. The topics here listed are those where there was known or the potential for impacts to occur. For example, paleontological, which is fossils. There's no known resources that have been identified, but because of some of the soil types, there is a potential. So we identify mitigation that would be imposed on a project-specific level as development projects come before the city. And then lastly, there's two categories that we identified that would have significant unavoidable impacts. One being greenhouse gas emissions, just because the timing of the development and whether a lot of those projects come online and the feasibility of mitigation for some factors could cause greenhouse gas impacts. The first one, in terms of historic structures and impacts to the historic district, it's also important to note, as we mentioned, is that the county has already prepared an EIR. Some of those are the same areas that are within the overall specific plan area. Their EIR found that for their development, that although they were imposing mitigation, that impacts to historic structures, as well as there is a historic district that is on the state registry and has deemed eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. The changes that would occur would be significant and unavoidable. So this project that is in front of you for the county-specific plan doesn't cause different impacts the findings are consistent with the findings for the county's project related to those resources. And as mentioned, CEQA requires you to look at alternatives in the context of an EIR. We looked at 4 alternatives. One, which is the no project, no construction, which means nothing occurs. What is out there right now, there is no change to anything and there's no new development. So something that's vacant stays vacant. A building that is would potentially be rehabilitated as part of the proposed project would not be rehabilitated. Alternative B looks at just developing the project or developing the site consistent with the county's, or with, I'm sorry, the city's existing general plan and zoning for the site. It was determined that would be approximately 1,249,000 square feet of commercial manufacturing uses, which is the existing general plan designation for the property. Alternative C falls in line with the project that was approved by the county, which assumed some adaptive reuse. It creates greater buffers around some of the uses as we defined the project alternative with the city. So when you compare the change to the project, as mentioned, the project's about 700 dwelling units, 1.13 million square feet of non-residential uses. The adaptive reuse reduces the dwelling units to 640 units, with a small reduction also in square footage of non-residential to 1,020,000 square feet. Alternative D, which is the modified land use, just assumes residential development of the site. So when you kind of do taking the allowable density and applying it across the acreage, rather than having 700 units, you'd have about 2,000 dwelling units on the site, but no non-residential uses. So while the 2,000 units would help close the gap greater on the city meeting its RENA obligations for identifying sites, it doesn't really provide or identify closely with the guidance of the goals of the project, which are really to create kind of a mixed-use development that is predominantly transit-oriented. So we've talked about kind of where we are, but to reiterate, you have a planning commission hearing next week where, if I understand correctly, you'll be talking about whether or not to make a recommendation to the city council. The review period ends on the 22nd. Responses to comments will be prepared, and then both consideration of the specific plan, which is the project, as well as certification of the final EIR will be considered by the city council. So to reiterate, the review period for the EIR is still open. Guillermo's contact information is up here and is in other information both on the website and other formats in terms of if people want to provide the city with written comments on the EIR. Those should be in to the city by the 22nd at close of business. With that, that is the end of my presentation, and staff and myself will try to answer any questions. Again, and to reemphasize, this is just a study session. No decisions are going to be made. We may not be able to respond to all of any questions, but we will be taking record of any questions or comments that are being made that become part of the public record for the decision makers, as well as any of these relate specifically to environmental comments, that they're addressed as part of the responses to comments on the draft EAR. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Montoya, do you have any questions?
Yes, just one or two questions. With regards to the planned housing for the space, is it my understanding that LA County will be the one leasing or selling that land to developers to develop into housing?
Well, the land is owned by the county, so they would control it. All we're doing with the specific plan is laying out the allowable uses. As the landowner, yes, they would have the power to sell, lease, or develop as any way that they chose based on the zoning that's laid out.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes my questioning, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Montoya. Commissioner Ortiz?
First, I just want to say thank you for the detailed review of this. I just want to understand this a little bit further and get a little more information from our community. So no questions right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. Vice Chair Owens?
I have no questions, but thank you, Ms. Privet, for an excellent explanation and presentation.
I just have a brief questions. In terms of the 4 sub-districts, was that county mandated, or is that in conjunction with the city, how they came up with the 4 zones?
Well, the 4 zones were done in partnership with the county. We've been working with them closely throughout this process. So what we didn't want to do is duplicate anything that's happening out there. So for instance, in Zone 1, that's all built out. So the likelihood of that being redeveloped is probably low. So we wanted to institute a zone that's complementary with that. Zone 2, also the regional public facilities, once again, that aligns with the county's plan to put administrative buildings there. And Zone 3 and 4 also, once again, Zone 3 is where you've got your transit-oriented development uses that are surrounding the future station. And so that was a natural there in terms of that build-out. And then, as you heard, and as I've provided updates on, we have a soccer complex that's going to be built, a 5-acre complex that's under construction right now. So that was a natural then to kind of expand that open space area there.
All right, thank you. And then just other question here. Looks like there were some workshops going back to 2017. Just want to know what type of notice was given to residents or people in the community for those meetings.
Sure. We've, since the birth and let's say the acceleration of social media, we've really latched onto that. And so the city's website, the city's Facebook, city's Twitter, city's Instagram, the Nextdoor app. And then what we've also done is Downey's unique in the fact that it has an abundance of neighborhood associations. So we went through the neighborhood associations as well to provide outreach and notification of those meetings. And then the traditional marketing through the Downey Patriot at that time. We just recently started to use the Downey Latino. So the future activity has been posted in the Downey Latino. I think back in 17 and 18, we weren't using that function.
Right. And how was the turnout on that?
It was above average. We averaged probably about 30 plus at those meetings.
Okay. I have no further questions. Now's the time for the public. If you have any comments or questions, please step up. State your name and address, please.
Hello, Planning Commissioners. My name is Aide Bravo. I am a resident here in Downey. My address is 10331 Wiley Brook Avenue in District 3. The Rancho Los Amigos South Campus plans for a mixed variety of land use, according to your plan. I encourage affordable housing of families at this site. Currently, I have a relative who works full-time and is trying very hard not to become homeless. Due to the high increase of home values and rental property values, it has become more of a possibility that my relative will wind up on the street. Affordable housing will help an entire community and our society by ensuring a curb in the unhoused population. Your plan calls for enhancing economic development successes. I can't imagine a better economic development success than having a housing development that focuses on those that need it the most. When you invest in our families, you invest in our children. When you invest in our children, you will see economic gains. Our Downey families who need housing due to an economy in which wages have not kept up with inflation, they will benefit. I am a teacher and I have witnessed my students' families struggling to find housing. The last one of my students whose family lost their housing was living in a car. School absences are chronic and common. It's very common among students whose families are lacking stable housing. As a student, I had a stable home for many years, and I attribute my success to the fundamental right to have permanent housing. Our Downey families need this type of development. Support affordable housing at the Rancho Los Amigos South Campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Heyman. I live in the city of Downey. Hello, Mr. Owens. Good to see you again.
You as well, Mr. Heyman. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank our presenters this evening. They did an excellent job of capturing the essence of what is taking place there in the Rancho South Campus. And that development opportunity is probably going to be the last best chance we have to make a major milestone in reaching the housing mandates that the state of California has given us. 700 units isn't going to cut it. We need 2,000 units. That last option, option D. I understand that the county has uses in mind for those facilities, relocating probation, internal services, LA County Office of Ed, library, warehousing, et cetera. Once the new buildings are built on the South Campus, those old buildings will be freed up for development. So there's a housing opportunity there as well. But I'm concerned that if we don't seize this opportunity to build as many residential units as we can there, we're never going to meet that mandate. We just aren't going to do it. And further, we're going to lose housing in the northwest, or rather northeast part of the city of Downey due to the Caltrans planned widening of the 5 and the 605. Now, it may take many years before that happens, but so here is, we're giving up housing for freeway expansion. I would think that we would at least get some credit for that and get a reduction in the state mandated number of housing units the city is required to make. In essence, the state is taking housing away from us. So it's something Aldo, you and council and Mr. Levis may want to work on. But this is the best opportunity we're going to get a large parcel of land within the city to develop the housing we need. We need permanent supportive housing for our veterans. And I know there's a separate project going on at the corner of Gardendale and Garfield, an American Legion site that we gave up. I'm a member of the American Legion. We hated to see that site go, but it's going to go for higher and better use, permanent supportive housing for our veterans, and housing that recognizes in development the needs of the nearby Hollydale community. But don't let the County of Los Angeles drive what's going to happen there at that site. We have the opportunity to zone it the way we feel we need that site to be used. And damn it, it's got to be for housing, not 700 units, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 units. We need to build a whole residential community there if we're ever going to meet that state mandate for the number of housing units to be built in the city. So we need to work cooperatively with the county. They've given us a soccer field in essence, but boy, we could get a whole lot more. And I urge you to work with Supervisor Hahn, her deputy, Ivan Sulik, to come up with a more rational plan for that option. Option D, build as much housing as we can get there. Thank you very much. Build it and they will come.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Virginia Johnson. I am from Southgate. I am bordering Gardendale, Garfield, and just a little bit away from Paramount. I definitely do not approve of 700 to 2,000 units of, you figure 1 to 4 people or 1 to 6 people in each unit, depending on the unit, depending on what's being built. I mean, there is no room for the traffic. I know that supposedly there's supposed to be a nice transit being built at some year. And, but Paramount, Gardendale, Garfield, and I mean, none of those streets can handle this traffic. This is just amazing that anybody would put that this close to these tiny little streets and think that they're going to be able to get around and move around and think that they're in California are going to actually use transit. I mean, every 16-year-old kid is waiting to get their license. So also, this was, it was mentioned that this has been known since 2017. And I'm wondering why we never Downey never contacted Southgate on this particular thing. We did know about the transit, the Metro Transit coming in on the 3 and sometimes 4, depending on depending on the year, of the transit coming into Southgate. We knew later on about the north part of the South Campus having the business district with the probation department, not business district, but the probation department and those other facilities. But we never, ever knew about 700 to 2,000 dwelling units right next to Southgate. The people in Downey, they don't have to live right next to that. I mean, this is touching Southgate, and it's touching all the residential in Southgate, thousands of people on the east side of Southgate. And it's on the corner where there is no Downey homes. So of course you have people that want all these high rises and residential and putting a bunch of, sardine packed people, of course, because it's not going to be in their neighborhood. It's in our neighborhood. Downey needs to, is that time?
Yes, thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Andrea Paulino. I live in Hollydale, very near Garfield and Gardendale. And I'm voting a big no on all this housing for the same reasons that basically she is, because it's right in my back door. And the city of Southgate has to build 8,500 new units of housing to meet the arena numbers. I sure as heck would like to be able to shove it into somebody else's neighborhood, just as Downey's shoving theirs into mine. And I would really, really be interested if anyone has ever thought of, okay, say you did put 2,000 units of housing over there. How many people are actually going to be living in each unit? How many children are going to be in those units? Where are those children going to go to school? Are your schools ready for that? Are your hospitals ready for that? Is your fire department ready for that? Is your police department ready for that? Nobody is talking about where these people are going to go to the hospital, where they're going to go to school. That really needs to be taken into consideration. Where are these people going to shop? Where are they going to park? The last I heard was that the metro station didn't even have a parking lot planned. Okay, so Paramount has decided that they don't want a metro station in their city. So what if the people from Paramount want to come use the Gardendale station? where are they going to park their car? You know where they're going to park their car? In the Hollydale neighborhoods. Our parking in Southgate is already so bad that we just had a parking study done. At any given time, 80 to 90% of the parking in our city is taken. So these huge numbers are ridiculous. I mean, I know everybody wants to meet the arena numbers, but putting it all in one place in somebody else's neighborhood, especially since Southgate is building affordable housing at Paramount and Gardendale. And then, as he said, we have the supposedly veterans housing at Garfield and Gardendale. Then we have our own PATH facility, the homeless facility right down the street on Imperial and Garfield. I mean, it's just, there's only so much one little neighborhood can handle, not to mention all the traffic that's going to be brought in from the sports complex. Traffic, noise, trash.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Rodolfo. I'm from the Downey Tenants Union. So I'd like to mention, I really agree with some of the speakers. I think Ms. Bravo and Mr. Heyman. So we absolutely do need to be thinking more about how, all this housing is needed, because so many vulnerable members of the community are out there. They're in the cold, and a lot of them are veterans. I know, I've talked to them myself, like the ones at Apollo Park, they get all this negative publicity, sometimes straight from the person, from the mayor. They're, and she says, oh, they're not from Downey. Oh, they're from Downey. The one that, that they sit by the trees, they're from Downey. They went to Warren, some of them went to Downey High. They're definitely from Downey, and they need help, and they need more housing. We also don't just need more housing, we need housing that's truly affordable. So in addition to building housing, we also need to be thinking about the price of housing and how we're going to make sure that it's truly affordable. For all members of our community, there's a lot of young people especially that are trying to move out of their parents' homes. I know that, again, we in the Downey Tenants Union had many of them testify at this podium. So young people cannot afford to live in the city where we grew up in. And that's why we need some sort of price controls as well as increased supply. So totally agree with Mr. Heyman's call. Please, we need a lot more housing and price controls for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners.
Hey.
So the issue ahead of us is very precarious, so as some of the voices in the hall or the chambers have said, this is going to cause somewhat of a nuisance for some of the areas that they're going to develop this project in. At the same time, as some of the people in the chambers have said, this is also going to be a positive in terms of meeting mandates set by the city in terms of housing. I think what's key is balance, because at the same time, some of the opposition have stated that there may not be enough resources for new incoming housing. Where they're going to park, where they're going to go to school, where they're going to shop. But what you have to consider is with new housing comes new tenants, comes new owners, and that also comes with property taxes. It comes with financing for the city. It comes with people coming in and spending their dollars within the city, creating more revenue. So there are always going to be more options. There are things that we can't see ahead of us, but if we build and we see the gains that come from that, then we formulate new ideas. And move ahead from there. So I think with this is balance. Maybe something in between having no construction at all and what I believe Mr. Heyman was calling for in terms of more housing, more and more housing. Because the need is there. Los Angeles County is in a sad state right now. And if you go to any city within LA County, there's always that one pocket, and there are a surplus of homeless within that pocket. And we can try to ignore it all we want, but that problem won't go away. So we have to find solutions, and balance is always key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to come forward? No? Okay. Okay, I will now close the public comments. We're not taking action on this today, but now's the time to discuss with the planning commissioners for any suggestions going forward. Commissioner Ortiz, do you have any comments?
No comments right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Montoya?
Not a comment, but a question. Is it possible to probably reach out to Ms. Han's office to discuss maybe the possibility of, if it is possible, to increase some of the housing there, or some of the allotment of housing, like how much of it would be deemed affordable housing and whatnot. Just a question of whether that's something we can do to, or if that's too early in this game right now to do that, but something we can keep in mind.
Okay.
Sure, if I can add to that, the supervisor's office has been extremely involved in the development of the specific plan. They too want to address the need for affordable housing and housing in the region. And so they're supportive of at least the plan that's being presented. They too are struggling with, what number, is the best number in the balance for the need for affordable housing and what's happening at the area. In terms of adding additional housing in the future, that could happen through an amended EIR if that was interested. If the county's plans change, 5 years out, if they find their administrative offices aren't going to be needed there. So there's always a way to flex the plan. Also, in terms of affordable housing, it's something that our council has taken seriously, so much so that they created an affordable housing subcommittee. And one of the first things that staff suggested and they supported was the creation of an inclusionary housing ordinance. And so an inclusionary housing ordinance mandates that anybody that's building new housing include a certain percentage of that housing in their development. And if they don't, we create waivers of sorts to where they either pay for the amount of housing, affordable housing that they're not going to create, so that the city then can create a trust fund and then start to look to build and partner on its own, or other methods of creating that affordable housing. So it's a way that many cities, and now Downey will be doing in the near future, to have affordable housing guaranteed throughout the city. And also trying to do that through a balanced approach. And that's something that we'll be bringing back in the same fashion in a presentation to the Planning Commission, then for a recommendation for approval to council, probably in the next, I would say, 4 to 5 months to talk about that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Schindler. No further questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Return. Vice Chair Owens?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have some comments. First and foremost, my role here, and I believe the rest of the commissioners would agree, we're to speak in support of Downey's plans. And I don't say that to be unkind. I just say that that's our role. But I, as well, I'm sensitive to your comments as our neighbors. Okay. I kind of reminisce and think back about when's the last time I smelt the laundry operating in the Rancho South Campus, right? As I did smell that my entire time, as a youth and as a high school graduate from Pius X, and played sports down there and so on and so on. So I've seen the property, just like we've all seen it, without a whole lot being done, over the longest time. So now we have a chance. I agree with the speaker in regards to balance. That was a very, very key part of what I heard. And I think, again, my time sitting here, that whenever projects are planned and whenever a proposer comes in front of us with a plan, we have a chance to mitigate. And we have a chance to condition it, and put it correctly to potentially serve all, but also, get a project built, if you will, and installed. So we need to increase our housing inventory. That's a mandate. Everyone knows that. There will be an offset when the 5 freeway expands per the Caltrans plans. It might not be tomorrow. It's going to happen though. They're going to suck up some of those homes on the north end of town. We have a potential here, again, back to the mitigation measures or the conditioning of the project. There's no uncertain, predictable outcome that it'll be 700 units, it'll be 1,000 units, 4,000 units, but there'll be some thought put into this. There's a guarantee there. There's checks and balances in place. Last thing I want to talk about, it's already been talked about. I struggle with the same thing. I sent a note over to our chairman, while we're listening to the comments of all of you, but I go to, where's the closest grade school, in the neighborhood? It's down Gardendale a little ways. It's actually probably at Bellflower and Gardendale. Is that the Williams grade school down in that area? Certainly Pius 10th is a high school, but where's the junior high? It's probably going to be up Old River School Road, or
South?
Or Sussman. Sure. So there's certainly some challenges here, but overall, we have to do for Downey what Downey needs. We do need the housing units. That's a fact. I have been a big fan, for the longest time, shouting and yelling about how underserved we are in regards to public transit. We don't have a train. You can take a bus, you can take a cab, you can take an Uber, but you don't have a train, and the train will serve both ways. If you wanted to get onto the Amtrak system, you could probably ride this West Santa Ana branch behind Norwalk City Hall and jump on Amtrak and see America that way, right? But certainly if you wanted to get uptown to Union Station and all parts beyond, this is a vital piece, the transit piece. And with the transit comes, other amenities, other build-outs, retail, schools, churches, potentially, and certainly housing. So those are my general thoughts on this. There's a lot. This is a study session, so it was necessary for us to hear, from our neighbors and hear from our residents. And with that, I just wanted to share my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my thoughts, I definitely agree with the speaker, Ms. Bravo, and Rodolfo. I'd like to definitely see the housing be affordable housing. I know Mr. Schindler talked about the inclusionary housing percentage. So I guess my question would be, is there a set number for that? Is it a 20%, 40%? How does that come about?
Well, that's what's being studied right now by our subject matter experts. And what they're looking at is the need and what's reflective of the community. Generally an industry figure is anywhere between 12 and 20%. And so we'll probably be coming back with something within that ballpark as well. And that's something that can be discussed based on the facts that are put together regarding that study.
Thank you very much. As close to the 20%, I think that, the more affordable housing, I think, is key. I did like the gentleman's comments in the back about the balance. Every growth period has to be responsible growth. I know that, a lot of people see it as, stressing out in terms of what's already developed there. We always talk about traffic. We always talk about parking. I'd like to just say to the community, just a lot of times you got to wait to see what comes, because, a lot of those factors are taken into consideration. I think the transit will be great to create more foot traffic, I think, in the area and get people off the vehicles. So I know that every time there's anything about growth, all the negatives come in terms of, and those are, valid concerns and points. But, that's why we're voicing them here. It's a study period to really, come up with something that, again, I'm taking his words here, the balance everything out in terms of, the need for housing but responsible housing in the sense of, not stressing out an area too much and hopefully also being affordable. So, again, thanks to everybody who commented today. Those comments will definitely be reflected in what the final version is here. But again, just my last words here is that, a lot of times, the change is a little difficult for people, but, at the end, a lot of times people are pleasantly surprised. And, definitely your thoughts and concerns and our concerns will be, hopefully addressed in the final plan here. But that's all my comments. So thank you very much. So, moving on. Is the Director of Community Development aware of any changes to the agenda?
No changes tonight, Chairman.
All right. Does the Director of Community Development have a report on City Council actions?
Yes, thank you, Chair Duarte. At last night's meeting, our Mayor Fermenta appointed a new member to our vacant spot on our Planning Commission, and that is Carrie Uva. We've reached out to Ms. Uva, and it looks like she'll be participating in the August 4th Planning Commission meeting with us, so we'll have that seat filled. Also, at a prior meeting, the council approved a downtown security contract, primarily for the parking structure, and a route that includes the immediate area around that parking structure to augment any police activity there to keep our patrons safe. And then also, at a prior meeting, the council also approved an annual contract with the Chamber of Commerce. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. Now is the time set aside for public hearings. The public hearing for PLN-21-0079.
Chairman, there's no public hearings tonight. We only had that one item.
Oh, I'm sorry. No public hearing presentations.
I think we're moving on to a non-agenda public comment.
Oh, that's okay. Now is the time for the non-agenda public comments. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission on items within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission and not listed on the agenda. It is requested but not required that you state your name, address, and subject matter upon which you wish to speak. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Pursuant to the Brown Act, no discussion or action other than a brief response, referral to the city planning staff, or schedule for a subsequent agenda shall be taken by the Planning Commission on any issue brought forth under this section.
Brian Heyman, resident of Downey, second bite at the apple, different topic. What is the status of our parklets that we have in downtown Downey? That was developed and allowed under an emergency ordinance to accommodate the needs of our downtown businesses that have restaurants and whatnot, so they could operate minimally during the COVID period. But I'm concerned that, it's about time we get our downtown Downey Avenue back. These parklets can't be there forever. And I also have a general question. I should have asked it of Aldo, maybe outside the Planning Commission here, but do the restaurateurs pay rent for the parklet space? They've expanding their dining room capacity, and in a way, if they're not paying rent, they're getting a gift of public facility. The parkways that their dining areas have been expanded out onto, and if I were a restaurateur, I would love that arrangement to continue on. I don't think it's in the best interest of the city necessarily. It's a blight on downtown Downey to have the K-rails going right down the street like that. Many of these restaurants here, I can't speak for all of them, are really in essence bars. So they've increased their dining capacity, if you will, or their use of sidewalk, et cetera. And they're generating a revenue from that. And what is the city getting out of it? So are they paying rent? I've never thought about asking the question before. I doubt it. I wouldn't. I've seen that reflected in the budget, I suppose. But how much longer are we going to allow this gift of a public facility to our dining establishments downtown? This COVID thing is over. We are not going to lock down again. There's just no way that's going to happen, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So please start having some discussion with the restaurateurs, the Downtown Downey Business Association, and establish a deadline for taking the parklets away, taking the K-rails down, opening our sidewalks back up again. Now, I'm okay with sidewalk dining to some extent, if it doesn't block the pathway for accessibility, et cetera. But, this gift to our restaurateurs and business owners can't continue to go on. Okay, they need to be able to stand on their own. They're getting free rent out of us, and it looks terrible. It really does. And unless you happen to be into the bar and restaurant scene, I'm way past that. Okay, but hey, it turned into a nice thing for them, and we helped them get through a tough time where government came in and arbitrarily shut them down for no good reason, in my opinion. It was a complete overreaction. This thing is over now. We're at herd immunity. I want our parklets to go away and the sidewalks to be returned to their intended use by the citizens of Downey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Downs, and I had some concern about the new Chick-fil-A that went in on Imperial and Lakewood, and the traffic that it's just really bad. I usually take that way to get to work or get home, and you can't even get through that intersection there. You can't get out of the parking lot at Chick-fil-A without, I've seen a lot of near miss accidents. And I just, to kind of piggyback on the new development, we are seeing just one store go in and look at all the impact to our traffic. And now we're going to build this whole new section without really, what is the plan for the traffic that's going to impact everyone? Because a lot of the stores, if you drive down Imperial going towards Southgate, it's really hard to get through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dania Janzak. We just happened to be here tonight, and we just thought that maybe it's something that we could address with you. We've addressed it before with code enforcement. To our knowledge, and from what code enforcement has told us, Downey does not allow Airbnbs, but yet there is an Airbnb on the corner of our street. And it's a revolving door of cars. And, several of us have called the city on this, and nobody's done one thing about it. But we're told that it's against the law here in Downey, and yet you can go on the Airbnb website, and there it is. So I don't know if that's something that you guys would address, but it's really not fair to our neighborhood. The person that bought that said, oh, we're going to live there, and we're going to, the mom's going to live next door, and then they added another dwelling behind it, and they rent them all out. And it's not fair to our little street that, that's taking place there. And it's just a revolving door of cars from all over the country. There's somebody there from Texas right now. So, like I said, I don't know if that's something that you guys can address. Yes. But there's codes for reasons, and no. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Owens said something about adding more schools. Where in the city of Downey is there enough open land to build more schools?
Your schools are already overcrowded, so why isn't there some plan in motion to be building more schools? If you have 2,000 houses over there with most likely 2,000 to 4,000 kids in those places, where are they going to go to school? I mean, you better start building schools now. What hospitals are they going to go to? There are no hospitals in Southgate. There's a hospital in Downey, a small hospital that has been constantly adding, and by the time they're done adding, it's already outdated. I just do not understand where you guys think you're going to put all these people. I mean, you do not have the services to support.
This is under non-agenda public comment, correct? So
Yeah.
you're speaking on an item that's not on the agenda.
I'm just speaking in general of what, what I Los Padrinos is open. They're closing down all the youth facilities. What's going to be next? You guys going to start building over there? How about the county golf course? How about if we shut that down? That'll make a nice parcel. How many millions of houses could you fit over there? Problem is, you don't have anything to support the population. The state is forcing all this stuff, and there's nothing, they're not talking about how they're going to support the population. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other non-agenda public comments? Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Items in the section will be acted on in one motion unless the commissioner requests a separate action.
Chairman,
Anyone
if I may, we don't have any items on the consent calendar.
Okay, we're moving along. All right. Do we have any new business or any commissioner have any business to discuss? Commissioner Montoya?
No business, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ortiz?
No business. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair Owens?
I have none either. Thank you, Chair.
And I do not. Does the Director of Community Development have any additional comments?
No more comments, Chair Duarte. Thank you.
Okay. We are 8:05. We are adjourned. Thank you.